Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rachai Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is a response. The church that is at Babylon is not the RCC. And this is a response to the video that Elder Apostle Tahar did earlier today, or maybe he did it last night and uploaded it today. You know, because the Apostle always, films and sometimes is not able to put it up that particular day. So I'm not sure when exactly he did the video, but nevertheless it's done. And I did a lesson on this maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I'm not sure the name of the lesson. I'm not sure if it was just solely based on this issue, with this particular church at Babylon, but I know that it was mentioned within the lesson, and show you how the Spirit works, that everything that the apostle was saying is the same thing I was saying in the lesson that I did. Like I said, it was either 2 or 3 weeks ago. I don't know. I can't remember. It's too much to remember, brothers. So I know that there may be some brothers out there that, that may remember the lesson that I did on it. But nevertheless, it just shows you that there are a lot of hearsays, or however you say that word, that are coming out and trying to distort the truth and trying to move the focus away from America being Babylon the Great. Now, as the apostle was going through the lesson, and as some other individuals are saying and spewing the madness that they were spewing, I was listening to the apostle going into the lesson, and I was pretty much echoing the same sentiment. He went through different precepts of different churches and different places, and that is exactly what it is. You had back then a lot of synagogues and churches that were set up, in honor of the teachings of Yahushai, and you didn't see a lot of times when people read the scriptures or think about the scriptures, they think that everything was just centered around Jerusalem. Everything was not centered around Jerusalem, even though that is the center of the core of this belief, the belief of the truth. There were Israelites everywhere. You had congregations everywhere. You had synagogues and churches everywhere. And you had the men of the Lord that would give out shouts to the different churches. You could, like Elder Apostle Tahar did earlier, he put all the different, scriptures with the churches, and, salute the church over here and this church over here, and then tell this church, and so on and so forth. The churches that Yahushai was speaking about, the 7 churches in Asia Minor, so on and so forth. So what I want to do is just want to go through a couple of precepts, make this brief, because I want to put together another lesson based off of a title or alley-oop that Elder Apostle Tahar gave me, which is beautiful, so Lord's will, I can put that lesson together. I haven't really got a chance to put anything together, because, sometimes you got to deal, with the affairs of what's going on, and, the ringing, of shit, you know what I mean? So Salaki, I'm just saying. Anyway, this is 1 Peter 5:13. I'm gonna read this first, because this is where they went to. And see, you have to look at it like this. These cats that are doing these things, right? They're not doing it because they sat down and they were searching the scriptures, and all of a sudden said, oh, a light bulb went off. Oh, wow. This is, they're doing it because they're reading scriptures. They're going through the Blue Letter Bible, which Elder Apostle Tahar introduced to the Hebrew Israelite community. They're reading certain things, and then they're reading other information, and that's how they're concocting this bullshit that they're bringing out. I'm just leave it there. So 1 Peter 5:13, the church that is at Babylon elected together with you, saluteth you, and so doth Marcus my son. So they're trying to say that this is a code name for Babylon. First of all, the Apostle Peter didn't use code. He just went straight out and just taught what he had to teach. You know, when he addressed the different strangers, you know, from the different churches, he didn't address them by anything else but by the names that they were called by in those different places. Like here in 1 Peter 1:1, Peter, an apostle of Yahushua, to the strangers scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. He wasn't calling them by no code names, because that's what Esau says. You know, because I went through this, and I went through, you know, different research of how they call, you know, how they say that back then that Babylon was a code name for Rome and blah, blah, this, that, and the other. No, man. That's not the case. Now, if you want to get technical, you know, Babylon is a code name for Rome based off of the fact that today America would be Rome all over again in the reincarnation. And America is Babylon the Great. All right? So we'll just leave it at that. So building off of this, Pastor Tar said it, but I did it in the lesson, and this is the same thing to show you how the Spirit works. This is the same thought that came to mind, because I'm searching in my mind, you know, through the Spirit as to what scriptures could I go to combat, you know, the fact that you had, you know, communities of Israelites in these areas, you know, and oh man, beautiful. And this is one of the other precepts that I want to, but before I even read this, I want to go to Acts, the 2nd chapter. Pastor mentioned Acts, the 2nd chapter in the lesson. I brought out Acts, the 2nd chapter, you know, and, you know, it was a thought through the Spirit that came into my mind, you know. That's how the Spirit works, right? It says Acts 2:5, and there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven. Why were they Jews out of every nation under heaven, devout men? Because they came from all different places around the world that were where you had Israelite communities. If you have places around the world where you had Israelite communities, the Israelites gathered where? In synagogues. They had meeting places. They gathered out in the open. They gathered in people's houses. So someone's house could be a church. You see, as Elder Pastor mentioned in his lesson. So you had Israelites everywhere, congregations everywhere, believers in Yahushua everywhere, that 3 times a year, according to the scriptures, they will come to Jerusalem to worship the Most High, Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. Right? It says, now we're going to just jump down to the 9th verse. It says, Parthians and Medes and Elamites. So up in those areas, you know, of the Medes and the Elamites, you had Israelites all in those communities. You have today something called the caste system, I believe it's called. I first learned about that through the elder Bishop Ayathan, you know, and you have, I believe it was called the caste system. What was it? It was another name for them, for those Elamites that were in India. Damn, there was another name for them, the Daleks or something like this. I can't remember. If a brother knows the name or that I'm trying to remember, if you could put it on the comment board. But it was the ones that were outcasts, which were Israelites, you know. And there's a whole history behind that, but my memory is a little fuzzy on it because I really never got into that. You know, I just knew a little bit about it, but I really didn't get into that history. But you have a whole history of Israelites in those communities. All right. So it says Parthians and Medes and Elamites, because these were Israelites living among them. Remember, the scriptures say that we would be scattered what? Among all nations. And the dwellers in what? Mesopotamia, and in Judea, and in Cappadocia, in Pontus, and Asia. Now, when you look up the word Mesopotamia, right, this is the area between the two rivers, the Euphrates River and the Tigris River. Now, is not Babylon on those lines, on those rivers, on the side of the Euphrates? So it says Mesopotamia, between two rivers, the entire country between the two rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates, because that land in there, that mass land in there, that's where the Israelites, that's where civilization first started off. So you had Israelites that were still in those areas from the different captivities where they were scattered, still coming to Jerusalem every year. Okay? Keep that in mind. Now, what I did was I typed in, is Babylon included with Mesopotamia? So I wouldn't be bugging or tripping. It says Babylonia was a state in ancient Mesopotamia. So you had Israelites within ancient Mesopotamia that were that from that point, well, not from that point, from the time when Israel was scattered in those areas during the Babylonian Empire, the Assyrian Empire, you still had Israelites in those areas that were still coming down to Jerusalem to worship the Father. The untouchables, the water, brother, the Dalit, the Dalit, the brother Mathathia put it up there, the Dalit, and then the brother Lawahawad and Elam, the untouchables, are the lowest, and Brahmins the highest. So the untouchables are the ones that are the Israelites. And I believe it was, what the hell was that guy's name? Gandhi, I believe it was, that spoke highly of these people, that warned people not to look down on them or something along those lines. And like I said, there's a lot of information on that, So, recapping, Mesopotamia, you had what? Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven from Mesopotamia. Right? From Mesopotamia. Babylonia was a state in ancient Mesopotamia, the city of Babylon. So you had Israelites in those regions. And the Apostle Peter, as he shouted out in 1 Peter, I thought I still had it. 1 Peter, the first chapter. Let's go back there. I don't know why I put Isaiah. 1 Peter. I still got Isaiah on the brain. The first chapter and the first verse. Peter, an apostle of Yahushua, to the strangers. So what is this? This is a shout out, a salutation to the strangers or the Israelite foreigners scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. So he was shouting them out. And that was a thing that was done. The Apostle Paul would shout out the church of Thessalonica, or the different individuals from Colossus, or from Ephesus, or from Galatia, or, Cappadocia, and all those different regions. No different than what the Apostle Peter did here in 1 Peter 5. He was given a shout out to the church at Babylon, which was in the region of Mesopotamia, where you had a large community of Israelites that were coming to Jerusalem every year. And that's the bottom line. So Babylonia was a state in ancient Mesopotamia, the city of Babylon. So these individuals that came from Mesopotamia came from that area. So these are the people that the Apostle Peter was shouting out. There is no mention of Peter going to Rome in the scriptures. There is no mention of it at all, period. But there is a mention of him, of when they were, because the Apostle Peter was here. Was he not? Was not the Apostle Peter at the day of Pentecost? The first fruits? Was he not one of the apostles that were there, that was hit with the Holy Spirit, that spoke in tongues and spoke in the different languages of those different nations? And is not one of those nations that is mentioned, Mesopotamia, out there in the land of Babylon and in those different regions up in that area? This is who the Apostle Peter was shouting out, man. Then we go to Isaiah, the 11th chapter, in the 11th verse, and it says, this is the restored remnant. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, because we went into captivity, and from Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea. Because Israel was scattered everywhere. Now, where is the land of Shinar? So when we read Elam and Cush and all, when we read Cush, we should think about who? The Ethiopian eunuch. Because you had a large community of Israelites in Ethiopia. That's why in the book of Psalms, it mentions about Ethiopia. That's why you have these individuals that think that Jakes or the Israelites are Hamites because of that. Elam, we just read about Elam in where? In the book of Acts, the 2nd chapter. So for a long period of time, you had Israelites all in those regions. And then when they heard of the fame of Yahushua and the doctrine of Yahushua, there were certain of them that converted and came to Jerusalem to follow the Lord. And from Shinar, where is Shinar located? Shanair, country of the 2 rivers. The ancient name for the territory later known as Babylonia or Chaldea. Come on, goddamn, man. You know? So this is what the Apostle Peter was talking about. The church, the congregation, because the word church means called out. The congregation of Israelites that were in these different regions. Come on, man. And this is not, conjecture. This is not, going to this scholar or that so-called scholar, and getting information from here or secular history from over there. This is biblical, scriptural proof. And then, just for, as they say, shits and giggles, I forgot what I had typed in, but it says Iraqi Christians long history, right? Now, I'm not using this to prove the point. I'm just using this as a, just to show you what it says concerning this Christian history, right? I already proved it in the scriptures. Well, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai gave me the ability to prove it in the scriptures. This is just some extra stuff, right? We go to monasteries. The other significant communities are Assyrians, the descendants of the ancient empire of Assyria and Babylonia. After their empire collapsed in the 6th and 7th century BC, because it fell in the BC era before Yahushai to the Medo-Persian Empire, the Assyrians scattered across the Middle East. They embraced Christianity in the 1st century AD, with their ancient church of the East believed to be the oldest in what? The oldest in what? Iraq. So you had a lot of Israelites in those communities. And like I said, this is just gravy on top of what was already presented through the Spirit. Because we don't really, we use some history and secular history just to prove certain points. But the main focus in the cement and the glue of this whole thing is the scriptures. Are the scriptures. All right. So it's the city of Shinar. That's the same area of Mesopotamia, the ancient name for the territory later known as Babylonia or Chaldea, because that area right there was the cradle of civilization after the flood, where Shem, Ham, and Japheth repopulated the earth, and then everybody started to spread out from that point. All right. So that's the main point, And that was a response to the Elder Apostle R's video, the church that is at Babylon. It's not the RCC. The RCC being the Roman Catholic Church. And as I'm sitting here listening to the apostle, a thought came into mind. And then he said the same thing to show you how the Spirit works. Because the Roman Catholic Church didn't exist during the time of Peter. Unless they believe through their warped mind that the Apostle Peter is the head or beginning of the Roman Catholic Church, because that's what they say in the Roman Catholic Church, that everything that they do and say, the first church father was Peter. And if they believe that, then they bugged out. That's where you have the apostolic succession, which is the so-called succession or the following up of popes from Peter, then the next one, and the next one, and the next, all the way until the so-called Pope today, so-called St. Francis. So it's all a bugged out doctrine. And this is what happens when you're severed away from the Spirit of the Lord, because the scriptures say in the book of Matthew, and I'll leave you with this, the 6th chapter and the 22nd verse. The light of the body is the eye. The light of the body is the eye, meaning the spiritual eye, the pineal gland, the God gene, the thing that connects the Israelites with the Most High, the thing that connects people with a higher power. If therefore thine eye be single, meaning focused on one thing, thy whole body shall be full of light, because there will be nothing but light there. You know? But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? Because these individuals, Nas and them, you know, the other guys that are following him, I guess they're part of his clique or whatever the case is. They have gone into gross darkness, and that darkness is great. From being in the light, Nas and them other individuals that was a part of Great Millstone, once they severed, that light became darkness. That's where they will teach something that they're teaching now, because no longer is the Spirit of the Lord working with them. The Spirit is working with them, but not the Spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. It's a left-hand energy that's working with them. You know? So, you know, pretty much with that, you know, I just wanted to say a few words, you know, on that. And, shalom to the apostle and the elders and bishops and anyone else that may be watching, and a few sincere sisters. So I'm going to leave it there, you know. But, hey, you know, Barak Tehal Bashem Al Shai. And, Lord's will, this was edifying. And to the next time, I say shalom.